learn, we're gonna hold our knife. The first thing we're gonna do is, it is hard to cut round objects. So the first thing you do when you have a round object is make it flat. So we're gonna cut off a little bit of the stem end, and now it's flat. It's not round anymore. How many of you have recipes that you use on a regular basis, bless you, that you only need half of the onion, like all the time, right? Here's how you do what you do. Never peel the whole onion. Take your knife and put it exactly down the middle of the root end, okay? Cut through. This part, leave exactly as it is. Put it in a Ziploc bag. It will stay fresher in your refrigerator 2 to 3 days longer than if you peeled it and cut both ends off. Why? Because an onion is nothing but layers. The minute you cut this off, the layers come apart. The minute the layers come apart, it dries out. Keep it together and it stays juicy and fresher longer, okay? So now, we're gonna learn how to dice the perfect onion. So we are gonna peel it. Which, by the way, is a lot easier to do, believe it or not, with that end still intact. It's a lot easier to peel it, because watch what happens. You get to the end, okay, and just go like this. And rip it all off in one piece, okay? Next thing we're gonna do is take the, remember, we never cut anything round. We wanna cut something flat. So we're gonna take the flat end and put it down, okay? Now we're gonna take our knife, we're gonna hold our hand like this, and knife skills is learning how to use this hand and this hand. This hand, think of as your claw, okay? You're gonna always bend your fingertips behind your knuckles. If your fingertips are behind your knuckles, you're not gonna get hurt. It's that simple, okay? All right, so now you're gonna hold this flat, and with your knife parallel to the cutting board, you're gonna cut parallel cuts. Don't go all the way through or the onion will fall apart, okay? Depending on how tall it is, one cut sometimes, tops I've ever done is 3. All right? Now you're gonna turn it towards you. This is where the point comes in. The point is the important part. You're gonna stick the point in and you're gonna rock it over. And you're not gonna cut all the way through. And some of it is gonna come apart, but that's okay. We're trying to dice the onion, right? Now you're gonna turn it like this, and you're gonna simply go. And you have a perfect dice. Look at that. Super easy to learn how to do, but you have to practice, okay? When you get to the end, best thing to do, rock your knife. That's why it's shaped like this. This is why this knife is called the chef's knife, because it is the knife that chefs use the most. Now, in this case, we want an onion that is diced a little bit finer. Let me get this started. Wow. How do you plug this in? George! Can you plug it in and turn it on for me? All right, we're gonna learn how to use the curve of of the knife, okay? Please. We're gonna go like this, watch. And we're gonna dice it even finer. Now imagine doing this with parsley, cilantro, super easy to do. Okay. Now, learning how to make the perfect pan sauce. We are going to use my favorite, like this is probably one of my top 3 most favorite products. Love it! Because now we're gonna get that perfect sear, but with not the pain in the neck cleanup, okay? We're gonna let this pan preheat. That's really important. What number did you put it on?
The max.
The max? No.
No, the first few minutes you need to the max. When it's very hot, then we can turn it down.
All right. Medium high is what we want. By the way, I just have to confess, I only cook on gas, so it's really hard for me to cook on electric. It's not the same. All right, while that's heating up, can you go get the chicken, please? We're going to open a bottle of wine.
Behind you. Other table. The wine opener.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I know you all know how to use this, but this shows you how many tools that this demo really brings in, okay? I always if I'm doing a cooking show, I always ask, who hates to open wine? And you always get one person, right? I say, come on up, you give it a try. 100% of the time. They not only buy one, sometimes they buy more than one as gifts.
And if you're at a vendor event and there's a wine tasting booth, take beers over to them and have them use it till
Thank you. Here, wait. Here, can you? Where are the creamers? I need the creamers. Okay. You can hold that. Okay. Now we are going to cut the chicken in half using the what the heck? I never saw chicken like this. Okay. We are going to. I need that. So can somebody grab it? Thank you. We are going to use the closing cut here because why do we want to cut our chicken breasts?
Cut the cost in half and make it cook quicker.
Okay, number one, it cooks quicker, but why else?
It freezes and defrosts faster.
It what?
Freezes and defrosts faster if you were.
Okay, if you're freezing it, yeah, but in this case, we're not freezing it, we're cooking it.
Well, more evenly.
For college
It cooks
kids,
more evenly. Whoever said that, yes, you're absolutely right.
And we'll be talking to the guests about cutting their debt in half when they start to have to check business.
Okay, that too. All right, now, the recipe calls for about a tablespoon of oil, but that's a suggestion, okay? So you could measure out a table, but I love to sell the kitchen spritzer. I also like that I get a much more even coating. Now, you absolutely want to put the oil in there while it's heating up. Why? Say it loud.
So that the oil heats up.
Right. One of the biggest mistakes that people make,
You'd be so impressed.
one of the biggest mistakes that people make is not preheating pans and not preheating the oil.
If you put your chicken into not hot oil, your chicken's just soaking in the oil. It's going to
Exact-
absorb
no,
the oil rather than
exactly
getting this
right.
crust on the outside.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, I bring 2 pairs of tongs. I use one for raw chicken and one for the cooked chicken.
One large, one small.
Otherwise people will.
Well, I, myself included.
Yeah.
And you gotta point that out to people. It amazes me how many people never think about that they're using their dirty tongs.
Well, and this is another thing I never do. I have somebody come up and do this.
The person that hates the question. You ask them a question for that, like you do the wine, who here hates cutting chicken?
Right. Now, I have the flexible mats here for a reason. Does anybody know why? Besides the obvious.
You're gonna salt and pepper both sides.
Exactly. The other big mistake that wrong night. The other big mistake that non-cooks make is they try to add all the seasoning at the end. Big mistake. You season in layers as you go. So each ingredient gets seasoned. So that means we're gonna season the chicken and we're gonna season the onion separately. Okay. Do you wanna take the dirty products?
Yeah, let me get that.
Okay, I'll put it over here because we're throwing this thing. All right, so now we're gonna season them. No, that's not salt. This is. One of our fresh ingredients is sea salt. Number one way to kick up your seasoning, and now I can just carry this right over here. If you don't hear that sizzle, it means it's not hot enough. Okay? Okay, who has a timer on their phone? I need 5 minutes, please. 5 minutes on a timer on your phone. Now we're going to season the other side.
Carol, for this recipe, is there a tempered chef seasoning that you would recommend?
You could add a rub, Carolyn, but
I try to incorporate more like anything.
there is in the dressing.
Okay.
The lemon rosemary rub is featured in the dressing. I don't recommend it for this particular application because you want the white wine pan sauce to be the star of the show. Otherwise, you're doing all this work and people are like, why do I need that pan? Why do I need to do this? I just buy the rub and the chicken's gonna taste like that. So we want this to be the star, okay? Super easy. This is like the world's easiest recipe to make, and yet it's so delicious and fancy enough to impress people at a dinner party. We're selling the salt and pepper, absolutely. And that is the salt and the pepper are one of our 5 ingredients that you have to use fresh in order for people to think you're a better cook than you really are. Yes, and one other, I incorporated all of them into this menu. So the other ingredient is garlic. You have to, he told me, if you are not using garlic fresh, you're not a good cook. So there's a clove of fresh garlic in the dressing recipe. Another one of the ingredients is lemon. And if you are buying those squeezy bottles of lemon.
But Carol, tell them what you told us a while back about the lemon, how it enhances the flavor.
And that's in there. It enhances acidity. It's just like white wine is another example of acidity. That acidity brightens the flavor. So there's almost nothing that adding a squeeze of fresh lemon to doesn't make taste better. Almost nothing. Okay? So, here, I want you to notice something. What am I not doing? Let me tell you what this chef did to me. This is a true story. I'm standing there like, Miss, want to show him I really do know what I'm doing? And I'm like, he took my hand and gently hit my hand. He said, you want to get a perfect sear? Stay away. Go somewhere. He said, if you can't help yourself, walk away. Walk away. Set the timer for 5 minutes. Now, this is another tip. This method, 5-5, not touching in between, works for any protein. Steaks, chops, fish. If it's thicker, like if it's a really thick pork chop and you want it, it's not cooked all the way through, while you're doing this, preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Do 5-5, then take the entire pan and stick it in the oven that's preheated to 350 for 10 minutes. Any protein. Exactly right. Any protein.
5-5, 2 is in the middle.
Not 2, 10.
That's what I said.
Oh, I'm sorry, 10, yeah.
And then the 5 minutes of resting time.
We're gonna get there. We're not there yet, okay? All right, I need, can I get a plate, like a paper plate would be fine. Okay, thank you. Okay, another thing. So we talked about garlic, lemon, salt, and pepper. What's the other ingredient? Cheese. If you buy pre-grated cheese, he said, and don't grate your cheese fresh. Here's how I say it at parties. I say, what is one of the things you love about going out to eat? Don't you love it when, thank you. Don't you love it when the waiter comes over, and now can you do 5 minutes again? Thank you. And ask you, okay, and ask you if you want freshly grated cheese on your salad or on your pasta. Don't you just love that? Now, how would you feel if he came at you with the green pan? That's the difference between freshly grated Parmesan and what comes out of the can. There's no comparison. And then, of course, you talk about the grater. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. And then you can talk about the graters, okay? Which one?
Make sure you flip
His
the
timer
camera
went
on
off.
timer.
I have my timer. Thank you.
My timer is a little bit slower.
And by the way, I want to give a special shout out to George right now because this guy, wait, let me tell you what. This guy has eaten more chicken breast with white wine pan sauce every other day for weeks as I was working on this recipe, so.
Like the wine version.
And really, I could not ask for a better helper and support system. He's the best. So, okay, back to our chicken. What we're gonna do then is somebody said, Carolyn I think said, the next step is resting your protein. So we're gonna take it when the timer is up. We're gonna, and one thing I forgot today is my thermometer. I know. So, but you would normally,
Okay,
oh,
unless you're done.
Why does this keep happening?
It's like sleep mode itself off, it's like a freeze.
You would test your chicken when you take it off, and you tell people, there's only one way to tell if your protein is done, and that's to take its temperature, period, end of story. And if you don't want to eat dried out chicken, steak anymore, you need a thermometer. Almost every single person will buy one, really. So, you take it off, and we're gonna cover it with foil while we make the pan sauce. That's enough resting time, and it's the perfect way, and then we're just gonna add, what are you doing?
See, this goes off after a while, so you have to turn it back on. See the light there? You don't turn it on. So you go up the stage.
You turned it,
It doesn't automatically turn off when you
well, I want it on medium high. Can you put it on medium high? Why?
This has a thermostat. When it reaches a certain temperature, it turns off. Because the temperature is there already. So don't let it go.
Why didn't you tell me that? I will tell you, I had a different burner that I was using, and I started, because I always take a burner with me to show, and I noticed that the burner was, I was not getting good results.
So you have to turn the fuel is light on. The temperature is
Okay,
good.
not now. What we started to notice was, it was a coil, and the coil wasn't sitting flat anymore. So that's why I got a cast iron flat burner.
I got a propane.
I have propane one, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I haven't tried I didn't want to mess with it, but somebody else told me about it.
And it's more like the gas.
Way better than stove.
But more people can relate to the electric.
Comes in handy during a hurricane.
Yeah, yeah, true. All right, how much time do we have?
35.
Okay, so I'm gonna get our plate ready to go. And I've also got a piece of foil ready. And now, Lily, we're gonna take our cleaning time.
Do you have people time you at your shows?
Yes, yep.
Since we no longer sell
10
timer.
seconds.
Yeah, we don't tell a timer anymore, but it's a great way to get people involved, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. All right, and now we're gonna just put the foil over it. Okay, and now, what we have is what we're all after. What is that called? Fond. Exactly. Fond equals flavor.
So fond.
Fond equals flavor. So we're gonna add a little bit more oil, not because we have to worry about the onion sticking, but why? Oil is fat. Fat equals flavor. All the F's. Okay? Seriously, fat equals flavor.
And you gotta make sure you use the
Another knife skill. Use the back of your knife as a scraper. All right, here's the deal. What we want to do is cook the onion. We're not going to fully caramelize it, but we're going to cook it. And here it is. Then we're going to add our white wine. Now here's the thing about the white wine sauce. Our goal is we're going to put it in, and then we're going to reduce it by half. How often have you seen a recipe that says add the liquid and reduce it by half? How many of you have said, how the heck am I supposed to know when half is gone? That's what I always said. Guess what? Here's the tip you're gonna share. This, like, I was so excited when I learned this. It's the little things, Jen. When you put the liquid in, whether it's broth, whether it's wine, whatever it is, and you go like this with a spoon in the pan, what's gonna happen? It's gonna instantly go back together, okay? Think about being in a pool and going like this with your hand. Instantly, the water goes back together. When it's reduced by half, and you go like this, there's a, like, half a second amount of time that it stays parted.
That's called, Carol, it's called the Moses effect.
Because it's it's the Moses effect, exactly. But the reason is because it's thicker. Now, why do we want to reduce the liquid by half? Why don't we just put half as much wine in?
We want to break out the alcohol and concentrate the flavor.
No.
No. Really? Thicken it?
Yeah, but there are other ways to thicken it.
Deflate.
Yeah, because you go by the recipe and that's what it's.
Then what, but why does it say that?
I just,
I know, so it's like, can I read ahead?
Because we want to intensify the flavor.
Who said that? I said that.
I didn't hear intensify.
I didn't hear
No, I heard we want to cook out the alcohol,
And
so.
I said
Okay,
concentrate flavor.
okay, I didn't hear that. We don't, I mean, a side effect of cooking alcohol is that the alcohol cooks out, but that's not our goal. Our goal is intensify the flavor, and if I missed that, I'm sorry. You absolutely want to do that. Now, remember what I said about seasoning the ingredients as we go? So now we're gonna, by the way, another tip with sea salt versus ordinary table salt, probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago, I stopped buying table salt, never have it in my house, ever. And I will tell you that I discovered, I took it for granted, I forgot that I don't use table salt anymore until I gave my daughter-in-law a recipe. Sent her home and she said, no matter what I did, I followed your recipe to the T. I could not get it to taste like yours. Until we dissected exactly what she did, she was using table salt. That's what a difference it makes, okay?
What do you bake with? Yeah.
What?
What do you bake with?
Kosher salt. Kosher salt. That's what I add to when I salt pasta water. Because it's a lot less expensive than sea salt. Think of, just one sec, think of this as your finishing salt. It's, kosher salt is something that you're gonna bake with, add to pasta water, something like that. This is more of a finishing salt.
Where's your Himalayan salt?
I can't hear you.
Where's the Himalayan salt coming in?
The Himalayan salt, that's a great question, is we now know that the pink Himalayan salt has 85 minerals that are not found, that your body needs, that are not found anywhere else in food. 85 minerals. So, that's the,
What about the cooking Himalayan salt in this recipe? Oh, yeah.
well, it is, that's what I'm using. I'm using our salt, which is sea salt with the pink Himalayan salt. Okay? All right, so we are now adding our wine. By the way, the recipe says, what does the recipe say? 2/3. Okay, that's a suggestion. Okay? Seriously, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a little bit extra sauce, add more. If that's not as important to you, add less, okay? So I have 3/4 of a cup. Now, we're gonna add this in. And I wanna show you what I'm talking about. We're gonna take the spoon. That smells good, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we're gonna go like this. Can you all see? No. All right, get up. Oh. All right, now watch. See, it instantly goes back together. Okay, no Moses effect. Now we're gonna let it cook until we get there, okay? Now, if you're doing this as an actual cooking show, while this is all cooking, you can be making the salad dressing, you can be, grating the Parmesan cheese. I didn't make the whole thing for you because you guys know how to do that. I wanted to show you the parts that might seem a little scary, and I also wanted to show you this. This is the only thing that's really not a Pampered Chef recipe. It used to be on the use and care of the old stainless steel cookware.
Yes, the 8-inch saute.
8-night chicken is what my husband.
I know, and it's gone, and it's a shame because it works for this. So there's no reason why I couldn't bring it back.
We can put mushrooms in it.
You could do whatever you want. And actually, the original recipe called for a shallot. The reason I changed it to an onion was twofold. Number one, because 90% of the people are never gonna buy shallots. So if you teach them how to dice a shallot, they're out. An onion they can relate to, okay, number one. Number two, it shows the perfect way to show off those knife skills, how to hold the knife, etc. Wait, I answered somebody over here had a question or a hand up. No? Okay, Tracy.
You mentioned, two questions. You mentioned potatoes that are missing. Where would you incorporate the potatoes if this was a show? And then the second question is would you be doing, in order to wrap it up for products and order type of thing, to take it from a cooking class to a, show sales? How would you incorporate that?
The only thing, and I talk about this in the handout, is have the pound cake mixed before anybody gets there. So that's baking in the oven when they arrive, so it already smells great. All you have to do is really make the whipped cream, which you have somebody from the audience do. And then the arugula is you take out of a bag and dump it in a bowl. And the vinaigrette you're making while this is going on. The first thing you do though, before you get the chicken started, is you're slicing potatoes with the crinkle cutter. And then you're just throwing them on the pan and sticking them in the oven, because those have to bake in the oven. Okay? Yeah, well, it takes like a half an hour. By the way, the thinner you cut the potatoes, the quicker they'll cook, so don't leave them really thick, is a great tip, yes.
Just have any tips on white wine or purchasing wine for making the wine reduction sauce?
Okay, that's a great question. And that is let me ask you this. If I had an opportunity to next year get somebody who could teach us pairing wine with food, would you be interested?
Yes.
Okay, I think I have somebody that, I know like maybe a little bit more than 101, but I'm not like advanced degree. But I think I can make that happen. But to answer your question for now, what you want, when you're cooking, you want to look for a dry wine. Because what you don't want is sweetness, because that doesn't taste good with protein. So if you're trying to cook with a white wine, you can't go wrong with a Chardonnay, because it's a dry, complex flavored white wine. Why is the complex flavor important? The complexity comes from aging in oak. So you want to look for, if you see a wine that says unoaked Chardonnay, that's not what you want to cook with. You might like the taste of that, but the complexity of the oak really enhances things like a sauce. Because remember, there's only 2 ingredients in the sauce. There's onions and white wine. So each of them have to be really good. Exactly right. Okay? So you can't go wrong with a Chardonnay. All right? Now, is that the first time I what?
How often do you stir the sauce?
You don't.
Do you know?
What? See, all it has to do is simmer. That's it. What would stirring do to this sauce?
Give you some exercise.
No, seriously.
You would make the temperature go down, maybe it would put.
Maybe.
So it's not cooking.
The only time you need to stir sauces or gravies is when you're adding a thickening agent like flour or cornstarch. Then you have to stir it not to get lumps. This is not that kind of a sauce. So I can be over here talking and not have to worry about it. Yes?
I'm looking on the arugula salad. I'm not seeing a tool to make the salad dressing. I see the Cinestill whisk. Is that what? To
Yes.
make the dressing. Now, why would you do that instead of, like, say, I always do dressing?
Because we're teaching how to cook. This is basic cooking skills. So every house needs to have a whisk. They eventually want to have a manual food processor.
So would you recommend showing them how to do it with the basic tools, but telling them another option would be?
You absolutely could do that, but this is cooking 101. Okay, I know you want to get in higher priced products, but this is also about getting lots of bookings, okay? And there's
maybe
enough
talk about
product
the
here
process
to
get bookings.
There's plenty of product.
there's a lot of product here. Yes.
Do you always have as a hot plate with you, or?
No, if the recipe doesn't call for it, then no. But if it does, I do. Because just like you would rather be seated than standing up watching me, so would your guests at a cooking show. They don't want to be standing in a kitchen. They want to be sitting. They worked all day. They want a glass of wine in their hand and they want to be sitting. All right, let's take a look at this. I can see, but just by looking at it, that it's reduced somewhat. But now I'm going to show you. Okay?
Oh, it's already thicker, you can tell.
You can tell, right? Okay, but now watch.
Oh, yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
Now it's coming back,
Yeah.
but not right away.
Hold it a little bit lower for the short girls.
Oh. Okay, wait. Okay, can you see? All right, now watch. See that? I've got a dry pan here. That's how you know. How cool is that? All right, now we're going to turn this.
Carol, you realize at dinner we're all going to order whatever's closest to this on the menu.
Oh, you're all going to get to taste it.
But at dinner, we're going to have
Yeah,
something
oh,
just like
yeah,
this.
but we're all going to get to taste it. How good does this smell?
Oh my God.
Fabulous.
All right, George, can I ask you to take this chicken with this knife and just like slice it in bite-sized strips? Can you do that? On here's a cutting board. Do you take it back there? Yeah, just have it. There you go. Okay.
Rinse the knife.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah, wash the knife first. Yes, thank you. Normally, I grab the wrong one. Yes,
So you're presenting this as a cooking 101. So would you have them maybe like pre-purchase something, like?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, she said you're presenting this as Cooking 101, more like a lot of people call them workshops. Would you require a pre-purchase? It's up to you. This is your business. You do what makes sense to you. Personally, I'm gonna say something that's probably controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think a lot of times pre-purchases are because people are either trying to get an order in at the end of the month or because their selling skills are not there. I feel confident enough in my selling skills that I don't need to pre-purchase, because what I think happens with pre-purchases, they don't often buy at the party because they felt like they've already purchased. I get them to buy a heck of a lot more at the party when there isn't a pre-purchase requirement. But you know what, Lauren, that's a great question. You do what makes sense for your business.
So, here's a question too. Is it legal to do like, have them buy a ticket to the class, but then be able to apply that price to their purchase? Because sometimes.
I don't know if it's
I mean, well, as far as
legal.
company-wise legal.
I don't know. I don't
Where's
know.
the
But
legal
again, guys, if you're, listen, here's the thing. What have I taught you since day one? The best way to build a loyal customer base and get bookings is to combine education and entertainment, that edutainment factor. If you're doing that well, you will get bookings, and you really don't need those other gimmicks, because that's really what they are.
To kind of expand on your question of the pre-purchase, I think that the pre-purchase pack kind of works good if they're going to be hands-on making something to take home. Like when I did the cookie thing, so I did like a cookie workshop, they pre-purchased the package
Because they
took-
needed the
they
products.
used those products and then took them home.
Exactly.
This is a little different because they're not gonna be, I mean, they may be hands-on, like putting the chicken in, but they're not gonna be preparing it and bringing it home.
We're not
Whereas
gonna
the
have
cookies they did.
15 people
Yeah.
with pans cooking chicken at the same
I
time.
did a kids pizza party.
Right, exactly. And they don't all need the same products here. Some of them might actually have good knives already, and they would rather put their money into buying the skillet full price, you know? Yes.
Some of us do the, spend $100 and pull out of my basket kind of thing. I would love to have a couple extra living rosemaries and then just tell the people, what you just had. By the way, if you spend $100, it's in that basket. Just because women
Yeah, it's
will
your
bump their
business. You
order
can
up
do
for
whatever-
another one with the rub that they're gonna order again from
You can do whatever makes sense to you. All right, let me ask you, do you now feel more confident with a very comprehensive handout, sharing these tips? Okay, how many of you think that this will help you get bookings? Woo! Okay, how many of you are gonna avoid this like the plague? And you're not gonna hurt my feelings.
I was just thinking, I wanna go home and make this for
I
It
know.
is so, wait till you taste it, it's so
Y'all all
good.
wanna go buy
Now,
all of these
one
products
last
from
thing.
Carol. She'll make your mouth water. We're all gonna go buy a new 12-inch, I'll buy the skillet, I think I need a knife, I need a closing cut. Yeah, I mean, every time, anything she talks about, we're all like.
But can you buy them for next month? I already earned all the products for
No.
May. I already in June. There's one last tip for the sauce. I didn't do it here because of the circumstances, but if you're in home or if you're going live making. Now, if you're going live, I would suggest breaking this up a little bit. Maybe one time showing how to do the chicken, another time showing how to do the pan sauce. It's a little too long to just do all in one shot. But here is another tip for the sauce. If you want a really luxurious mouthfeel, now you're gonna sound like you really know what you're talking about. If you want a luxurious mouthfeel, you're gonna add, right at the end,